welcome back to Mad About Cards and Crafts. Today I'm bringing you a Trinity Stamps design team project as part of the Trinity Ambassadors program. I have this 3x6 mini slim geometric cutout panel as well as the holiday hangout, which are both new to the Trinity Stamp store. It is part of their recent release. There are two gnomes hanging on ornaments, an ornament and a sentiment in that stamp set. I have the Buttercup Blossoms Stamp and Die. This is a slimline pack. There are 5 different florals in here as well as several different sentiments. And again, I do have those coordinating dies. I'm starting with a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch Copic friendly piece of paper. I am going to prime these stamps. This is the first time that I've used them. When you get new stamps, sometimes there's a residue on them that prevents them from maybe stamping as clear as you would like them to. To prime your stamp and prepare them for the first use, I do use a sand eraser over the top of it, as you saw, and I did just brush off any of that residue. And once I did that, I was able to get a beautiful impression. Now I am using some Copic friendly ink here, and you did see that I did a little bit of compression stamping. That's not because of the stamp or the priming. That's because I am using my original Misti, and there's a little bit of a warp on the door. If you know how long the Misti's been around, I want to say 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. This Misti has had a lot of love. We're going to start our Copic coloring with some RV markers. I started with, at the base of the flower, an RV 29. I blended that out with an RV 25, and here I'm using an RV 23. I'll go around that undershadow on that larger flower with an RV 29 and then blend a little bit with an RV 25. For the leaves, I have a teal combination. I'm starting with a BG 49 at the base, blending that out with a BG 45, and finally I have a BG 53. Now I have 3 different colors that I'm going to be using on the gnome. 2 are the combinations that you're seeing right here, and I am going to add a third. I like to keep the continuity in my cards, so I do try to keep the same color themes repeating throughout. So you notice that I started with the red pinks and added the teals. I'm going to do the same thing to the ornament just to make everything a little bit more cohesive. I did speed up my coloring quite a bit because I didn't want you to be here all day while I was coloring. So this is not how fast I normally color if you're new to my channel. Here's that third combination I'm bringing in. I started with the wrong marker. I started with my mid-tone, which was an RV 66, quickly realized it wasn't the color I needed. So I brought in the RV 69, and you can see where I'm adding my shadows. Here I'm blending that out with that mid-tone, that RV 66. I'll leave a lot of white space right here and add in an RV 63. Once I finish with this, I'm going to go over it a second time, extending my shadows a little bit further out, extending my mid-tone out even further, and leaving a nice highlight in the center of his hat with that RV 63. Then I will move down to the ornament. I will take the RV 69 and I'll use it on one of the lines on the ornament, and then I'm going to blend out one of the areas, starting with my RV 69, blending out with the RV 66, and then leaving that RV 63 for the center. So I start on the left and the right sides and draw that color in. Again, I have an RV 69, and then I'm going to repeat this on this bottom section, and then I'll bring back in those BG markers. So I'll start with the BG 49, blend it out with the BG 45, and finish it off with the BG 53. You'll notice again, I'm going left to right, and the highlight is going to be in the center of the ornament. I'm going to use this same color combination at the top of this bulb. And finally, I'll bring in that final RV 29, 25, and RV 23. and I think that this gnome is just absolutely adorable. If you are not familiar with Trinity stamps, I will have all of the products linked in the description box below. They have a ton of adorable stamps. The gnomes are one of their signature pieces. They have gnomes for every season, and I just am always so excited when they have their new releases to see what new gnomes they're going to be releasing. So these were super fun. I didn't get the dies, and I kind of wish that I did. Now, I did use my brother's Scan and Cut to cut out this gnome and ornament. I used the dies that I did have from the Buttercup Blossoms, but the sentiment that I used that I believe says Happy Holidays, if I would have had the die, it would have been a little bit smaller and more precise on my card. I am a terrible fussy cutter, and I know there's a lot of people that are just brilliant at cutting out sentiments and leaving a nice little border along the edge of it. That's not me. My sentiment does take up a little bit more of the card than what I would have liked, but you know, hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it? Here I'm using my E11 as my darkest color and blending it out with an E1. For the beard, this is my favorite part of the gnome. I started with my darkest color, which is a W6. I added some flicking motions here and there. I'm going top to bottom. Right here on the beard, I'll go left to right with my flicks on the mustache. I'll add a little bit of W4, and finally I'll add a little bit more of the W2. I do leave quite a bit of white space, but because I did use those warm gray markers, it does warm up the area, and so you don't get that stark white underneath. I'm using my BG marker just to color in where the little bit of clothing that there is. So I'm coloring his sleeves, and then I'm going to move on to his shoes. For the bottom of the sole of his shoe, I started with an N7. I blended that out with an N5. And finally, I added my highlight, which was an N3. I just used the N7 on the top of the shoe to give him a black shoe. For the top of the ornament off camera, I did use a C2 and I believe a C0 to color that ornament topper. Again, I used my brother's Scan and Cut to cut out the gnome, and we'll move on. This is a 3x6 mini slimline, so it was cut to 6x6 and scored at the 3-inch mark. I used some plum paper from my stash. As you can see, I'm adding those same colors that I used with my Copic Coloring. I cut out the mini slim geometric cutout panel with a teal piece of cardstock. I've added some foam tape to the back of both the Buttercup Blossom piece as well as the gnome. Now, I didn't have the piece of foam tape cut thin enough, so there I was just trimming that down a little bit. I'm coming back in with a piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment using some Catherine Pooler ink in, oh my goodness, it's something party. The lid was on the screen. But anyway, I am going to cut it down with my guillotine trimmer as best I can. And then I'm going to bring in a corner rounder just to cut those sharp edges down a little bit. And once I do that, I'm going to glue the sentiment directly to my card panel, and that will finish up my card for today. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked the video, I would absolutely love for you to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you think of this color combination. I've been working really hard to bring you different color combinations. To try to stay in the same tones is kind of like a safety net for me. So I have really worked hard to just bring a bunch of different color combinations. I don't think that this is what you would call a traditional Christmas card. Typically you see red, green, and gold. Today I brought you teal, purple, and a reddish pink. I'm going to add some highlights with my gel pen to the hat. And then I'm also going to add some dotted highlights to the flowers. I'll leave you with one more look at my card, and then there'll be some videos linked at the end if you want to see more of what I create. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back again later this week with a second Trinity Stamps project. Until then, I hope you have a fabulous